There are thoughts that make no noise, but even so, they stop you as if something inside were holding you back. That inner voice that whispers to you, what if you fail? What if you're not enough? What if others are watching you and judging you? You don't tell anyone, but you feel it. And let me tell you something. It's not a coincidence that you're watching this episode right now. You came here because a part of you is tired of living under that voice and wants, once and for all, to understand what to do with it. Stay, because today might be the day your mind takes the turn you've been waiting years for without realizing it. Insecurity doesn't show up because you're weak or because there's some hidden flaw in you. It arises as a mental habit your mind adopted a long time ago, almost without your permission, and keeps repeating like an old echo. But when you understand how it works, where it comes from, and how to deactivate it, something transforms. You stop feeling like a victim of your own thoughts and start regaining control. And if you're aligned with this idea, I invite you to leave a comment saying, "Today I choose to believe less in my doubts." It's a powerful affirmation made for you, and it also helps this message reach more people. I want you to listen to this carefully. Feeling insecurity doesn't mean you're lacking something. It means you care. It means you're on the edge of growth. The problem has never been feeling it, but allowing it to define you. And we're not here to give you pretty phrases. We're here to teach you how to train your mind so that voice stops ruling your life. If you know someone who always doubts themselves, share this episode with them. It could be exactly what they needed, and sharing it supports us more than you imagine, so we can continue creating content like this. Take a breath for a moment, because what comes next has the power to change how you talk to yourself, how you perceive yourself, and how you walk your own path. We're heading toward that place where insecurity is born, and where it can also end. Let's begin. First lesson: the voice that speaks to you doesn't always tell the truth. The first lesson, and perhaps the most liberating one, is understanding that a large part of your insecurity doesn't come from who you really are, but from what your mind tells you when it's operating on autopilot. An untrained mind generates thoughts that seem logical but have no foundation. They are echoes from the past, inherited fears, misinterpreted experiences, and comparisons you absorbed without meaning to. And because they appear inside your head, you end up taking them as absolute truths, even when they aren't. The Stoics understood this with complete clarity. Epictetus said that what affects you is not what happens to you, but what you interpret about what happens to you. And when that interpretation is born from fear, it can turn any small detail into a threat to your self-esteem. When you begin to see your thoughts as simple mental events, and not as definitions of your identity, a deep shift occurs. You stop automatically believing every negative phrase that appears and begin to observe it. Instead of reacting right away, you pause, and in that space you discover something you used to overlook. Many of your insecurities are old stories that your mind repeats because it learned them years ago, not because they're real today. That separation between what you think and who you really are is one of the most powerful tools that exist to reclaim your internal confidence. If you don't make that separation, your mind is in charge. When you do make it, you decide which thoughts deserve your attention. And here is the key to this first lesson. Every time that little voice shows up telling you you're not enough, don't face it with force. Face it with clarity. Ask yourself, is this thought describing a fact, or is it just my fear speaking? With that question alone, you're already training your mind not to assume that everything it says is true. To close this lesson, I want to leave you with a question that I invite you to answer in the comments. What insecure thought has accompanied you for years, and today you choose to question for what it really is? Just a thought? Second lesson. Insecurity grows when you hide it, but it weakens when you name it. The second lesson is understanding that insecurity is not defeated by running away from it, but by shining light on it. Many people spend their lives trying to hide their doubts, fears, and emptiness, as if concealing them could make them disappear. But the mind doesn't work that way. What you silence accumulates. What you avoid grows stronger. What you deny always finds a way to return. The Stoics understood this very clearly. You cannot overcome what you are not willing to look at. When you name what you feel, when you say, "This scares me," or "This is where I feel insecure," you don't make yourself weak. You make yourself honest. Because what becomes clear stops controlling you. The simple act of acknowledging your insecurity reduces the emotional weight that fuels it and turns it into something you can work on, instead of something that controls you from the shadows. When you do this, something powerful happens. Your thoughts stop carrying that mysterious weight that crushes you. Insecurity stops feeling like a shapeless monster and becomes something concrete, a specific fear, an identifiable pattern. And absolutely everything you can describe, you can transform. This doesn't mean you must expose yourself to everything at once or share it publicly. It means recognizing it within yourself with clarity. Modern science on anxiety confirms this idea. Naming the emotion reduces its intensity because it activates the rational part of the brain. The Stoics already practiced this. They called things by their name to regain control. When you say, "I feel fear about this," deep down you are saying, "I understand what I'm facing." And that changes absolutely everything. To make this lesson practical, I want to leave you with a question that I invite you to answer in the comments. What specific insecurity are you willing to name today to take away its power over you? Third lesson. Your mind doesn't need certainty, it needs direction. The third lesson is about understanding that much of your insecurity appears when your mind doesn't know where to focus. When you don't have a clear direction, your head starts inventing scenarios, possibilities, and dangers that don't even exist. The mind by nature hates emptiness. If you don't give it a focus, it creates one, and it's almost always negative. That's why you imagine that people will judge you, that you're not capable, or that something will go wrong. Not because it's true, but because your mind is looking for something to hold on to. The Stoics summed it up like this: a disordered mind suffers more from its imagination than from reality. What generates insecurity in you isn't the situation itself, but not knowing how to face it. Without direction, the mind fills with noise, and with direction, it calms down. When you decide where you want your attention to go, even if it's a small step, something reorganizes inside you. You stop reacting to internal chaos and begin to guide it. Insecurity loses strength when you have a clear and specific, "What do I do now?" You don't need to know the whole plan or predict the ending. You just need to know what your next step is. That small clarity gives your mind a fixed point to return to when it starts to exaggerate or imagine non-existent risks. The Stoics constantly repeated this idea. Focus on what you have in front of you, not on what worries you about tomorrow, nor on what terrifies you in your head. That immediate direction prevents the mind from scattering and feeding its own fears. The magic of this lesson is that when your attention has direction, your mind stops chasing every negative thought. It becomes more practical, more action-oriented. This doesn't eliminate insecurity from one day to the next, but it does keep it from paralyzing you. And every small step is real proof for your mind. You don't need certainty to move forward. You only need a concrete purpose. To integrate this lesson, I'll leave you with a reflection I invite you to answer below. What is the next small, clear, and concrete step you can take today to stop feeding your insecurity? Fourth lesson. Confidence doesn't appear before you act. It appears because you act. The fourth lesson is one of the most transformative. Confidence doesn't arrive before movement. It arrives after. Many people stay stuck waiting to feel ready, brave, or capable before starting something, when in reality, confidence is born from the act itself. If you think about it, you've almost never felt fully prepared before taking an important step. The mind always wants guarantees. It wants the certainty that everything will go perfectly before allowing you to move forward. But that guarantee doesn't exist. And while you wait to feel secure before acting, insecurity feeds on the time that passes without you doing anything. The Stoics understood this with absolute clarity. Character and strength are not built by thinking, they are built by doing. When you take a small step, even with fear, something incredible happens. Your mind receives real evidence that you are capable. And with each new piece of evidence, insecurity loses strength. It's the opposite effect of the circle of doubt. Every action breaks down a part of the mental wall built with "I can't," "I'm not enough," "I don't know how to do it." This isn't about suddenly becoming brave. It's about acting without waiting for the fear to disappear. Modern psychology confirms this progressive exposure, even minimal, generates more confidence than any positive thought. The Stoics already knew this without needing neuroscience. Right action is the remedy for fear, not the result of feeling brave. And here is the heart of this lesson. Confidence is built. It does not arrive as a miracle or as an unexpected gift. It is the consequence of small, repeated actions, even when you have doubts. Each step is a vote for the person you want to become. And those votes accumulated shape your identity. Don't wait to feel ready. Start small, but start. To close this lesson, I'll leave you with another question for the comments. What small action have you been postponing just because you were waiting to feel ready? Fifth lesson. What you think about yourself weighs less than what you repeat to yourself. The fifth lesson reveals a truth many people ignore. Your self-esteem is not shaped by isolated thoughts, but by the phrases you repeat to yourself over and over again. Your internal dialogue is like a drop falling on a stone. It doesn't break it in one blow, but it transforms it over time. Insecurity often comes from a collection of phrases you've told yourself for years. I'm bad at this. I always fail. I'm not enough. Even if they aren't true, repetition makes them familiar. And what's familiar feels true. The Stoics understood the power of mental repetition. They said the mind is like a garden. If you don't decide what to plant, whatever falls by accident will grow. And if what fell were doubts, comparisons, and fears, that's exactly what you'll keep harvesting over and over again. When you begin to modify your internal language even a little, something quiet but transformative happens. Your words start teaching your mind a new way of seeing yourself. This is not about repeating empty affirmations. It's about replacing destructive judgments with real descriptions. Changing "I'm a mess" to "I'm learning." It's not self-deception, it's precision. Changing "I can't" to "I haven't been able to yet." It's not forced positivity, it's honesty. That kind of language, repeated calmly, retrains the mental pathways that insecurity had monopolized. Science confirms it. The way you speak to yourself determines how you decide, how you act, and how you face your fears. Words shape identity. And if you change your narrative, your perception of yourself changes as well. That's why this lesson is essential. Confidence is not only built with actions, it's also built with narration. You are the internal narrator of your story. If you narrate from defeat, you will live as someone defeated. If you narrate from progress and patience, your mind will reflect a stronger version of yourself. To integrate this lesson, answer below. What negative phrase have you repeated to yourself for years? And what more honest and human phrase are you going to start repeating from today onward? Sixth lesson. Don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to your progress. The sixth lesson is understanding that a big part of your insecurity doesn't come from what you do wrong, but from constant comparison. Insecurity grows when you look at what others have already achieved and forget what you have already advanced. It's like seeing your life through a distorted mirror. It only shows your flaws and other people's successes. And the cruelest part is that you never see the full context. You see someone succeed, but you don't see their doubts. You see someone confident, but you don't see their hours of fear. You see results, but you don't see the process. The Stoics taught that comparison is a trap because it steals your focus from the only thing you can truly improve, your own progress. When you compare yourself to others, your worth depends on external factors. When you compare yourself to yourself, your worth depends on your daily effort. When you begin measuring your growth through your own timeline, insecurity becomes more fair. You are no longer less than someone else. You're simply a person in a different stage. And this simple shift reduces anxiety almost instantly, because your mind stops feeling like it's losing an imaginary race and starts seeing that what matters isn't arriving first, it's moving further than yesterday. This is how the Stoics trained their character. Not by seeking to be better than others, but by being better than themselves the day before. That perspective calms comparison, organizes your self-esteem, and reminds you that every one of your steps matters, even if no one applauds it. That is why this lesson is so essential. External comparison feeds insecurity. Internal comparison creates direction. To integrate this lesson, answer below. Who are you comparing yourself to, and how would your confidence change if from today on you compared yourself only to your own progress? Seventh lesson, your mind doesn't need more strength, it needs more calm. The seventh lesson is understanding that insecurity is not overcome by toughening yourself up or demanding more from yourself. On the contrary, insecurity amplifies when your mind is on alert, accelerated, overloaded, and without space. Many people believe that to feel secure they must get tougher, be strong, or push harder. But that forced strength only increases internal noise. True confidence doesn't come from tension, it comes from mental space. The Stoics knew this. A clear mind makes better decisions than a strong mind. A strong but unsettled mind collapses. A calm but trained mind remains steady. What few understand is that much of insecurity comes from interpreting too quickly. When you are accelerated, you exaggerate risks, imagine problems, and distort your own worth. Not because you are insecure, but because there is no calm. When you introduce calm, even for a few seconds, something surprising happens. Your thoughts become more accurate. Your emotions settle. Insecurity lowers its volume. Calm is like lowering the water level. It lets you see the bottom without everything looking turbulent. Modern neuroscience shows that when breathing becomes deep and slow, the nervous system shifts from defense to clarity. The Stoics practice this without knowing about neurons. Pause, breathe, observe, name, not to deny the emotion, but to give it space. When there is calm, the mind stops inventing stories that scare you and starts showing you reality. And in reality, you are almost never as insufficient as you thought, nor as far behind as you imagined. That's why this lesson is essential. Emotional security does not appear when you force yourself to be strong, but when you allow yourself to be present. You don't need to meditate for hours or have a perfect life. You just need to remember that every time you slow down, your mind settles and insecurity loses territory. To make it practical, answer below. What moment of the day will you use to give yourself those seconds of calm that your mind needs to stop exaggerating your insecurities? Confidence is not a destination, it is a daily decision. The deepest teaching is this: your confidence will not arrive like a lightning bolt of inspiration or an unexpected magical change. It is built slowly, in the invisible moments, in those small instants where you choose to question what you once took for granted, in those moments where you choose not to obey the voice that limits you, in those tiny steps you take even with fear in your chest. It's not about becoming a perfect person. It's about becoming a conscious one, someone who knows that the mind can lie, that comparisons deceive, that insecurities grow in silence, and that calm is not a luxury. It is an essential tool. The beautiful thing is that all of this is already inside you. You don't have to earn it or wait to transform your entire life to feel it. You just need to remember it. If anything became clear in these lessons, it's that your insecurity is not your identity, nor your destiny, nor your limit. It is simply a mental pattern learned unintentionally, and one you can now unlearn. You are stronger than you imagine, more capable than you think, and more valuable than your mind has allowed you to recognize. And every time you choose to give yourself calm, every time you act without waiting to feel ready, every time you change the way you speak to yourself, you are rewriting your internal story. It doesn't matter how many times you've doubted before. What matters is how many times you choose yourself from today onward. Because that is the true Stoic victory, choosing yourself even when your mind tries to convince you otherwise. To close this episode, I invite you to share it with someone who needs it, with someone who always doubts themselves, with someone who deserves to feel stronger on the inside. Sharing it not only helps them, it also helps us continue creating content that transforms, supports, and uplifts. And before you leave, tell me in the comments, Which lesson from this episode are you going to apply today to start building a more confident version of yourself? Your answer may inspire others. Thank you for being here. It was no coincidence that you arrived. And if you want to continue strengthening your mind, subscribe. The best is yet to come.